Bottom line, Flo, Canteen, Hot Take, Jake, and O.
Do a little Major League Baseball. You want to start with the stat, Ken?
Yeah,
man. Let's look at the numbers, man. When we look at the American League East right now,
let's get
the
through
Yankees,
it, though, man.
The Yankees are at 78-54. The Orioles are close behind them at 76-56, with 2 games behind. The Red Sox 10.5 games behind. The Devil Rays 12.5 games behind. The Blue Jays 14 games behind in the American League East. So, I mean, it looks pretty short up in that division. The Yankees and the Orioles look pretty promising in that division. When we look at the American League Central, we got the Guardians at 75-57. The Royals are at 74-58. They're only 1 game behind. The Twins, 72-59. They're 2.5 games behind. So you got three top tier teams in that division. The Tigers are 9 games behind in Clever D. I hate to say it, brother, but at 44 games behind. The 4 Chicago White Sox.
You keep. No one mentioned the last place team.
It should be mentioned. It should be mentioned. It is going to be historic. They are going to surpass the New York Mets. Thank God for the worst record in baseball history. All they need is 19 more losses, and to be honest, they'll be lucky if they don't have way more than that. So
sound the alarm. A record. What was the record? What's the old record?
The Mets lost 120 games back in, what was that, 1969 or 67 or 8 or something like that.
Yeah. And so far, the White Sox have lost 101 this season. They've lost
101 already. There's
got like a month left, right?
Yeah, there's technically 30 games left, but they're only winning 1 out of every 4 games, which means that they would only win 7 of those games and lose 23 of them, which would beat the record. So,
okay, so your Mets come off one of the bad records, right? They come off the list. So shout out to the Mets for coming off that terrible list.
Well, not yet.
For a good 70, 80 years.
Yeah, well,
and they have
I'm open.
The American League West, man. The Astros sit at 70-61. The Mariners are 67-65. They're 3.5 games behind. The Rangers, 10 games behind. At Oakland A's at 14 games behind, and the Angels are at 16 games behind. So the Mariners and the Astros are pretty much short up the American League, the West. When we look at the National League East, the Phillies are in 77-54. Right behind the Phillies, the Braves are six games behind at 71-60. The Mets are close behind them at 68-63, but 9 games behind. The Nationals, 19 games behind, and the Marlins are 30 games behind. The National League Central is pretty much sewn up by the Brewers. The Brewers are 75-55, and everyone else is at least 10 games behind. So you have the Cubs at 66-66. The Cardinals are at 65-66. The Reds are at 12.5 games behind, and the Pirates are at 13, almost 14 games behind. Now the National League West is really, really close too, because you look at the 78-53 Dodgers are in first place. Diamondbacks are at 75-56, 3 games behind, and the Padres are 75-58 with 4 games behind. And behind them are the Giants at 13 games behind, and the lowly Colorado Rockies that sit at 49-83 at 30 games behind. That is your baseball stat, gentlemen.
Still well ahead of the White Sox, right?
Yeah.
So just backing Ken up a little bit to make those stats come to life a little bit. He's right. The Yankees, Orioles, Guardians, we're starting to separate themselves. The Astros, but we cannot forget that the Royals and Mariners have been playing well as of late. The Royals have won 7 of their last 10 and actually have a better run differential. They have a positive run differential of 102 versus the Guardians 71. So that actually means something in baseball when you're scoring more runs than all the other teams.
Right.
Also, the Mariners have a huge series this week. Depending on what happens with that and with the Astros in their series, both of them, we'll see what happens in the AL West, but this is going to be that series that kind of make or breaks the division there. Also, in the NL, all the good teams are playing at their best right now. Everybody in the past 10 games has been 6-4 or above, including Philadelphia, Atlanta, New York, Los Angeles, Arizona, San Diego, Milwaukee. All the good teams in the NL have all won the majority of their past 10 games. So again, that NL race is really tightening up. The Mets and the Diamondbacks are tied 3 games out of the wild card. San Diego is there 1 game behind them. So that race is really tightening up. Whereas in the AL, again, it's a little more, it's a little more sewn up, as Canteen said. Now, forgetting all about that, let's move to the more important things that have happened this week in baseball. I've got a few huge pieces of news to talk about. First of all, Aaron Judge is going bonkers this week.
Wow.
He had a 1,300 OPS, 7 home runs, and 15 RBIs. He also got to 52 home runs. He is now on pace to break his record last year of 62 with 63 home runs. So Aaron Judge is on an absolute tear. Who else is on an absolute tear?
Shout out to Aaron Judge.
Thank you for that. Who else is on an absolute tear? The absolute best player and craziest unicorn player we've ever seen in our lives, Shohei Ohtani, who has achieved a 40-40 season, which means 40 home runs and 40 stolen bases. And he did it in the shortest amount of times, and not by a little bit, but by like 20 games. So Shohei Ohtani is something we have never seen before. He may, and I am going to call it right now, I'm giving you the old Jake, you heard it here first. He is going to get the first ever 50-50 season in Major League Baseball history.
So there's never been a 50-50.
There's never been a 45-45, and he's definitely going to get that. I'm saying he's going even better, and he's going to get picked.
Oh, wow.
No, never been.
Wow. So shout out. You heard it here first. The first 50-50 in Major League Baseball history. Wow. You got anything for Omar, Ken?
Nah, man, we're getting into the brink of the baseball season, man. I'm actually interested to see how the playoff matchups, the wild card, and all that stuff is going to pan out. So I'm excited to see what baseball is going to bring us in the next few weeks, man.
Right. Okay. And so, Omar, one quick question. So how much of a surprise, we kind of knew some of these, some of these divisions were going to be kind of tight and competitive. But how much of a surprise is it that the AL Central has 3 teams with 70 wins, and even Detroit has 66, kind of bringing up the rear. Of course, the White Sox are not good, but everybody else, 3 teams with 70 wins. Was that a bit of a surprise for for Major League Baseball? I don't think everybody was looking at it as that competitive of a division there in the Central.
If you're talking about that division in general, no, because most of the time their teams usually are fringe wild card teams. Yeah. You're looking at like 80 to 90 wins any year for all of those teams. But this year they've played well above their heads. The Cleveland Guardians have Stephen Kwan, who's the best hitter in the league. He's hitting over 350 batting average. The Royals, very plucky. They got Bobby Witt Jr., who, if it wasn't for Aaron Judge, would be the AL MVP. Bobby Witt Jr. is on his way to a 40 season possibly. So, and he's only in his second or third year, so he's amazing. And then the Twins just have a really, really good all-around team. So, is it a surprise? Sure, yeah, it's a surprise.
Yeah,
that there's 2 370-win teams in that division. But is it like any of those? Because all of those teams have been in the playoffs in the past, 5-10 years. So they're all usually right there.
So, being that it's such a competitive division, do you think that possibly one of those teams could make a run? Other than everybody's looking at the Yankees and Houston maybe coming out, because they're always. Like, could one of those teams come in there and surprise? Even Baltimore, everybody's kind of looking at them to make a run this year. That's how they played last year. Do you feel like one of those teams could make a run at the World Series, possibly?
That's a great question. At the beginning of the season, I would have told you that it was going to be the Cleveland Guardians. They've been the ones that have been more consistently in the playoff the past few years. They had a good young squad. They got an MVP candidate in Jose Ramirez. They've got a good pitching staff. So usually I would claim it would be the Guardians. But seeing how the Royals have climbed back in it, this year, and knowing that they have Bobby Witt Jr., again, one of the best players in the league. And you know how I talk about baseball and momentum being so important in baseball. And that's where I'm coming from. The Royals, again, are coming on at the right time. They're 7-3 in their last 10. Cleveland is 3-7 in their last 10. Remember, I said the Kansas City Royals have a 30-point run differential over the Guardians. All these things bode well for them. So we'll see what happens, but they are, aside from Cleveland having the better offense, they are two evenly matched teams. It would be nice to see them maybe even battle in the playoffs, but we'll see what happens.
That's good. Can't hear you.
Can't hear you if you're talking. I can't hear any. I can hear.
Oh, okay, sorry, my bad.
Yeah, all right, we got you now.
I'm back. Sorry, somebody was talking to me over here. Yeah, is there any chance Minnesota's that team? They're only 2.5 games back. Is there any chance they make it slip in there? I mean, they're playing well.
Sure, they're a decent team. I think they're pretty much in the same mold as the Cleveland Guardians. Is kind of what they resemble. But they don't have the MVP candidate that Cleveland does in Jose Ramirez. So I would not. I like how both of those teams, the Guardians and Royals, have MVP candidates, whereas the Twins do not. They have a more rounded team. But again, at the same time, it's also about momentum. And I just think right now, Kansas City has the most momentum to carry them into September.
Bottom line, low, canteen, hot take, Jake and